Somebody on stream the other day asked me, Luke, why do you cover Ubisoft so much? Why do you cover like Bethesda Game Studios and their mishaps so often? And there's the one side of it, which is that like it's the elephant in the room and it's kind of funny watching something go down in flames and descend slowly into oblivion. But beyond that, the reason I cover these companies is because at my core, I'm a fan. Like, I remember the days when these companies were great. I remember playing Assassin's Creed 2 for so many hours and just getting lost in that world. I remember the first time I saw a trailer for Assassin's Creed 3 with the snow deformation physics in the forest as you're hiking through, seeing the snow crunch underneath Connor's feet. It was mind-blowing. It was really, really exciting to see how quickly gaming was evolving. But over the last decade plus, Ubisoft has been on a steady downward spiral, in my opinion. They've had a couple of surprising spikes that I've enjoyed and I've liked. I'm a huge Ancient Egypt fan, so like Assassin's Creed Origins was a dream come true to be able to explore the pyramids in a game. Like, that's fantastic. And then Indiana Jones just did that, but that's a separate question. The point is, like, they've had a couple spikes, but in general, the slope has been down. And this is reaffirmed with just this year's financial performance from the Ubisoft stock, which you can't always put that much stock in stocks, but in this case, it is pretty indicative of the health of the company. According to a lot of analysts, Ubisoft should, under proper management, be worth probably between 10 and 20 billion dollars with the IP they have, with the number of devs they have, all of that stuff. The fact that they are currently trading at a market cap intraday of 1.6 billion euros shows you just how little confidence investors have in current leadership. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, because I think there is a way out for Ubisoft of all of this crap, but I think it's going to be messy. I think it's going to be a little chaotic. And, you know, going into 2025, I think there are a few very clear things we can expect to happen based on my understanding of the company and what's going on. And I'm going to share those predictions with you in this video so that in October or whenever any of this happens or does not happen, you can refer back to this and either be like, wow, Luke got it right, or tease me for getting it wrong, as is tradition on the internet. Because no matter which way you look at it, Ubisoft is in a very sorry state right now, and they are in desperate need of a win, of a change, of an angel that comes down and resuscitates the flopping corpse. They need something, because what's happening right now is not working. And I'm going to explain all of this to you, in addition to some new revelations of stuff we can expect in the next couple of months. As always, if you like the video, like the video. Makes sense, right? Checks out. And make sure to check out Luke Stevens Live, my live stream channel where we post a ton of other content. That channel's been blowing up recently, so definitely get over there and get subscribed. And also, if you're a member of that channel, just for $5 a month, you get an exclusive video every single month. You get member-only streams, you get a bunch of other perks like the big Witcher retrospective video I'm making that's like multiple hours long. You get early access to that video before anybody else. So if you're interested in more Luke Stevens content for some reason, go check it out. Links below in the link tree. Okay, sound good? Cool. But first, a real quick thank you to our sponsor, Incogni. Incogni is the cutting edge service that allows you to remove your name and information from all of those pesky lists online without all the headaches. I've actually used Incogni myself for months and months at this point, and I can't recommend it enough, because what it does is you put in your private information, your name, your email address, phone number, that type of thing, that like pollsters or like telemarketers might get and use to spam call you. And then using their automated tools, Incogni will then go to all of the major websites and places that collect all of that information, and they will send requests, official paperwork, demanding your information is removed. And they'll even go through the process of sending like follow-up emails and follow-up takedown requests and things to make sure they remain in compliance, since these companies have to get rid of your information if you request it removed. And as you can see, back in August when it first sent stuff out, it sent 144 requests out. It completed 89, 55 were still in progress. And over the last few months, I've had to do nothing, and they have continually sent new requests for things to be be removed. They've followed up on other things, and they've succeeded in removing my name and information from just under 400 different places. So whether you are a YouTuber or you're just somebody that doesn't like getting spam calls or having your information leaked and sold by anybody at this point on the internet, it's 2024, that happens all the time, you should definitely check out Incogni. All of the links will be below, and use my code to save 60% off of an annual plan. Again, I can't recommend it enough. It is fantastic. It works. Once I started using them in the run up to the election, I no longer got those robocalls. I never got those calls from pollsters or other people from political campaigns or anything, because my information was removed from all of it, and I didn't have to stress about it or do it myself manually. And as you can see from their own estimations of how long it takes the average person to fill out that information, it saved me 291 hours, which is what these like scam callers and stuff rely on, is that it takes so long to get rid of your information, nobody's gonna ever do it. But Incogni makes it easy, simple, and they even have family plans if you wanna remove it for you, your wife or spouse or whatever else. Check them out. Again, links below, can't recommend them enough. Now, first things first, we all know that Ubisoft has had a really, really bad year. They've had a few really rough launches, notably Skull and Bones, the game that surprises everybody that it still exists, launched and did not exactly excel. It, as some people have said, did not make a splash. And it doesn't surprise anybody who knew anything about it that it failed, but investors naturally are still upset about it. Even if it was an expected flop, it still is a flop nonetheless, so that's affected the stock price. Ubisoft has also struggled to put out consistently critically acclaimed games and games that they spend a lot of money on that generate any semblance of profit. Whether you look at something like X-Defiant, which was extremely expensive to put together, which has recently been announced that it's going to be shut down next year, or if you look at the multiple NFT games they've launched in the last few weeks. Yeah, you heard that right. In the last handful of weeks, Ubisoft has launched not one, but 2 NFT games. Like, NFT games weren't cool back in 2021 when NFTs were like a thing that people were talking about. And they're definitely not a thing right now. Like NFTs, I cannot believe that there is a multi-billion-dollar company putting stuff out for these now, but that's just what's happening. And one of them is just like a work in progress disaster from like a week ago that features Rayman. It's really, really bizarre. I have a video clip on that. If you are interested, here it is. No way, is this it? No way, this is what it actually looks like. Is this really it? Bro. And then the other NFT game that they launched a handful of weeks ago, I also tried on stream. Again, like, you got to go subscribe to my second channel. Links below. We look at all this stuff. It's awesome. Join us. You won't regret it. But in this clip, you're going to see how some of these NFTs are priced. And I didn't believe it when I saw it, but some of these get into the, what would that be? 9-digit range, 9-digit microtransaction, basically. Look at this. If you don't believe me, look at this. Let's see, marketplace. It's based around an in-game currency. Then they convert. People can set their own price. So people. Oh, wow. Oh man, that's pretty funny. This is what's so funny about the NFT thing though. It's like, this is their vision. This is like part of what the dream is, right? That you could have these guys that are priced like this, and you could make a living selling $128 million dudes. And each one of these numbers I think is unique. So the idea is that you can see like their abilities and what they can do specifically. So then you can purchase these. It's really funny. People are already trolling with it, selling stuff for hundreds of millions of dollars. Like even 130 bucks for this guy, 128 million. That's crazy. But I was not expecting somebody to be selling a $295,569,666.66 NFT in this game. But there you go. You know, like all those football stadiums that exist throughout the world, you could build one of those, or you could buy this guy. Up to you, my friend. Like, I don't know how on earth this happens. Like, I really think Ubisoft, to a certain degree, doesn't understand the concept of brand damage. They think that they can just put anything out there, and if 5 people like it and spend $20 on it, they're like, hey, we made $100. Yeah, cool. Anyway, what's the other project? The executives don't understand that by putting this out, it tarnishes the brand that also is over top of Assassin's Creed and Star Wars Outlaws and The Division and Rainbow Six. Like, it makes the whole company look bad when you spend millions of dollars on these projects and then you're shutting down studios that pump out your best game of the year, which we'll talk about in a minute, in the form of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, or other games that had potential like X-Defiant. Like, to put this even more clearly, Skull and Bones, which was by every metric a disaster, that game has been greenlit for a second season of content. And yet, X-Defiant is not. X-Defiant will be shut down before Skull and Bones. Like, let's be honest, maybe X-Defiant is just way more expensive to run, the server infrastructure is way worse or something, I don't know. Maybe all of the content for Skull and Bones second season is already done, so it takes like 5 people to run it. Who knows? But the point is, it looks insane when you greenlight a second season for that game, but you shut down this other one, which was by, again, every metric, better. It's wild. Now, I actually have a wee bit of a conspiratorial theory as it applies to this, which is, at some point, you have to look at a company like Ubisoft and wonder how on earth they are making so many consistently horrible decisions. How is it that they would greenlight the launch of multiple NFT games, which everybody knows are just going to hemorrhage money, and yet they shut down games like X-Defiant, and then they dissolve the studio behind their most critically acclaimed game of the last handful of years in the form of Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown? How on earth is it that they are rewarding mediocrity at every step and they are punishing their successes? It's almost like they want to fail. It's almost like they want their stock price to drop. Oh God, what if they do? Are you ready for a conspiracy theory? Let me show you. Super long story short, this is Yves Guillemot, the CEO of Ubisoft, one of the founding brothers. He is the current head honcho in charge of the company and has been in charge basically forever. He is currently in the process of trying to get the company bought out in partnership by Tencent, the most profitable gaming company in the world. You might not have heard of them, but they're like the big guys. Tencent is made of money, and they own a sizable chunk of Ubisoft. Specifically, they own half of the holding company that the Guillemot family holds all of their shares of stock in. And this was done a handful of years ago. There's a bunch of complicated legal crap that goes in with it, but basically the Guillemot family relies on Tencent and their cash in order to hold off outside buyers to keep control of the company. And Tencent needs the Guillemot family to give them the green light to acquire more shares of the company and gain more control of Ubisoft as a firm. So they kind of have this symbiotic relationship. It's actually quite beautiful. But the problem for Mr. Yves right now is that all of these buyout talks are currently being held up because he wants to remain in control. As you can see in the subheader, the Guillemot family hopes to retain leadership while Tencent vying for greater influence over future board decisions. In other words, the Guillemot family wants Tencent to pair with the Guillemot family to buy out Ubisoft, take it private, which, if it's a company worth about $10 to $20 billion when properly managed, buying it out for $1.6 billion, which is the current market cap for the company, that's a good deal. And if they're trying to do this, there's an incentive to get the company bought out for the lowest price possible. So there is sort of a twisted incentive for the company to underperform and continue nosediving into oblivion so that it's cheaper to buy out later. Now, the flip side of this is that that is like super illegal in every country I know of. You cannot be an executive intentionally trying to nosedive and tank the company so that you can then buy it out later and flip it. That is fraud in many, many ways in every country I know of. I'm sure it's also true in France, where Ubisoft is incorporated. So this is not something that is like a full-on legal accusation. I'm just saying it is mighty convenient that the Guillemot family seems so utterly incompetent until you consider maybe they are intentionally shutting down programs and games with potential, and then they are greenlighting and releasing games that perform horribly, and that's leading to the stock price to plummet at the exact same time they are trying to find a way to buy it out, take it private, and regain complete control of the company. I mean, if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it might not be a duck. Allegedly, it might not be a duck, but man, is it interesting, isn't it? We'll come back to this theory a little later in the video because I think it pertains to everything going on with Ubisoft and the final predictions over what's happening. But the key takeaway is that Ubisoft as a company is in turmoil. Their stock price is in a free fall. The leadership is desperately trying to retain control. They are working with Chinese mega giga corporations to try and get them to give them the cash to buy it out in exchange for equity, but then they also want to retain control, which the Chinese firm does not want them to have. It's a train wreck, and something needs to change. And for Ubisoft, what mainly needs to change is they need cash. Now, I don't want to bore you with my bachelor's degree in corporate finance, but what I will tell you is that Ubisoft at its core has seen decent revenue numbers. They've seen decent profitability. They've got decent margins. All of that is solid, which is why they're still considered a $1 billion+ company. The problem is that they have wasted hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars on projects that just went nowhere, or on games that just flop and don't do anywhere near as well as they expected. Most recently, Ubisoft had the launch of Star Wars Outlaws, a game which they apparently expected to do pretty well, but that struggled to make any significant impact, in large part due to lackluster reviews as the result of pretty bad AI, bugs, and a lack of polish. In fact, it performed so out of line with their expectations that they delayed about a dozen games. Like, they delayed not just Assassin's Creed Shadows, which was announced and close to launch, and so that was the most notable one and visible one, but every other Assassin's Creed project coming after it was also bumped back. So if there was a game that was supposed to launch a year after AC Shadows, that was also bumped back by 6 months or by a year. Like, everything was shuffled backwards, and that represents hundreds of millions of dollars in added development costs on top of everything else that they're doing. Because again, like, Ubisoft has 20,000 employees. They are gigantic for the number of games and the profitability of the games that they put out. They probably should not be as big as they are according to most analysts, but that's sort of a separate issue. But all of this just adds another layer of anxiety within the investor space around Ubisoft, because no matter which way you look at it, investors in general, both institutional and retail, feel as though they cannot trust Ubisoft leadership to provide consistently high quality games on a regular basis. They just can't. They just can't. Sometimes they hit it out of the park, or they do a really good game like Prince of Persia, and then a month later, they're launching an NFT game they spent $100 million on that 3 people play. Like, it's unbelievable how inconsistent the level of quality is, but that really is at the core of Ubisoft's problems, is that there is no real quality control. They just kind of let their 20,000 employees work on stuff, and then they hope it works out in the end. And even when projects should be shut down or should never have been greenlit, they still somehow sit within the corporate offices at Ubisoft without any sort of feedback or critical evaluation. Like, look at this trailer. This trailer is from 2008, okay? Technically, when this trailer dropped, like, Obama wasn't president yet, okay? He was like running. He wasn't even president yet. That's how long ago we're talking, okay? This trailer is for a game called Beyond Good and Evil 2, and it is still allegedly in active development at Ubisoft. It has not launched. It has not seen a total overhaul, like, gameplay reveal. It has been re-revealed once or twice. In 2017, we got like a tech demo sort of thing showing spaceships and things, but this game is still not out. They have been working on it for what, 16, 17 years at this point? It's wild. And yet they are still working on it. This has not been canceled. What a trailer too. Wow. And look, maybe that game ends up being amazing. Maybe. but also the odds are pretty high that it never sees the light of day. And even if it is pretty good, how on earth does it turn a profit? How on earth is it worth hundreds of people working on this over the course of 16 years? It doesn't make any sense. And yet the current leadership at Ubisoft is okay with wasting hundreds of millions of dollars on this stuff. Like The Witcher 3 was made in like 3 years with $80 million. In fact, the core development cost was probably between like $35 and $45 million. And then a bunch of money was spent on marketing and stuff. But that game was thrown together pretty cheaply, pretty quickly, and it's a masterpiece. And yet this game has been announced since 2008 and still we've seen almost nothing about it. Or notably Skull and Bones, which was in development hell for years and years and years, eventually launching in early 2024 to predicted success. But again, you just never know with Ubisoft whether you're going to get a solid game like an Assassin's Creed 2 or, in my opinion, like an AC Origins. Granted, I'm super biased because I love ancient Egypt, but still, like, you never know what you're going to get, whether it's good, okay, or horrifyingly bad in the case of like Skull and Bones. But I mean, right now with Ubisoft, the elephant in the room is certainly AC Shadows. I mean, that is their biggest bet right now. That game represents $500 to $800 million of total dev cost when all is said and done with marketing and everything else. Like, it is a huge bet for them and they need it to be successful. And to their credit, they delayed it to give it more polish time, and that polish time does seem to have made a big difference. In this tweet from the Hidden One, you can actually see a little side by side. This is the original gameplay reveal from the summer, from like June, July, and it's really clunky. It's just not looking great. It's just like, it's honestly probably fine for a lot of people, but it just doesn't look that good to me personally. But then we go to the updated footage, which across the board, not just like the foliage looking fantastic, but also just the quality of the animations, the smoothness, the parry, like actually slowing time, and the extra like post-processing effects. All of it looks significantly better. So they've definitely taken advantage of the added time, which they certainly can do. When you have 3,000 people working on your game that get an extra few months, it can make one hell of a difference. It really can. So to their credit, they've delayed it and polished that up. I'm sure in the comment section, there will be people who are still like, oh, but it still has Yasuke, I'm not going to play it. Cool. Good for you. Sounds good. But the point is, good for them at least for delaying it and polishing up the game, whether you're interested in it for one reason or another. I still think it's something they deserve credit for delaying something until it's ready. But at the end of the day, the problem with Ubisoft is that they just have never learned. We have been through this exact situation before, okay? It's why I have said for years at this point that the only way I think Ubisoft gets fixed is if the leadership changes. If the Guillemot family leaves, if the other people they've put in positions of control are gone, then I think you could see Ubisoft return to its days of glory. But I don't see another way other than that because, as I said, we have been through this path before. Look at this video from 5 years ago, October 29th, 2019. 5+ years ago from Yong Yeah. And he's going to explain to you all of the details so you can figure Yong out exactly what I'm referencing here. Little context here as we get into it. This was in the shadow of the Ghost Recon Breakpoint debacle, which was not just filled with pay to win stuff. It was also a game that was so horribly broken. It was basically unplayable at launch. It was just a disaster across the board. But listen to Yong.
Which brings us to today's news. So we're seeing headlines like these crop up. Ubisoft admits Ghost Recon Breakpoint has been a disaster. So it turns out Ubisoft had this grand epiphany. If you launch games broken with awful reception, people won't buy them. And so if we look at Ubisoft's latest statement right here, they admit that sales for Ghost Recon Breakpoint have been thoroughly disappointing. And they've finally decided that maybe not rushing games to launch is a good idea for future prospects. So the following information comes from this financial update on Ubisoft's part from October 24th, 2019. It reads right here, the company has revised downwards its targets for fiscal 2019 to 2020 and now expects net bookings of approximately £1.450 billion and non-IFRS operating income of between 20 million pounds and 50 million pounds, compared with the previous targets of net bookings of around 2.185 billion pounds and non-IFRS operating income of around 480 million.
Translation, they were expecting 480 million euros in this time period that they're talking about, 2019 to 2020 fiscal year. And they've adjusted that to between 20 and 50 million compared to 480 million. That is bad, okay? We actually got a letter like this in the aftermath of the Star Wars Outlaws disappointing launch, where out of nowhere, before anything else, like before a scheduled investor call or anything, they actually stepped forward and released this little thing saying, hey, this is not looking great, we're in trouble. So they've done this before, and they specifically say it is because of the sharp downward revision in the revenues expected from Ghost Recon Breakpoint, and to a lesser extent the Division 2. Basically, people were not spending money in the Division, and they certainly weren't going to be finding any success with Breakpoint. And then they also delayed Gods and Monsters, and that eventually would become Immortals Phoenix Rising. They renamed it. And then Rainbow Six Quarantine also got added dev time, and Watch Dogs Legion also got added dev time, and were all delayed. So once again, we have been through this before. Like 5 years ago, almost on the nose, Ubisoft was trying to get away with pumping stuff out before it was ready. They got caught with their pants down. They freaked out, delayed everything. Their stock price took a nosedive. And then they put out, a couple big financial hits like Valhalla, which was by all metrics like a big financial success for them. And then a few more years go by and some more games come out, and then they start making the same mistakes again and again and again. Because at the end of the day, the Guillemot family, the leadership at Ubisoft, they don't actually learn these lessons. Like, they don't actually care about the quality of the end product, it seems. They're just seeing what they can get away with. And that will never change. You're not going to teach like a 75-year-old man new tricks, okay? He's going to keep doing what he's always been doing. So that kind of brings us to the broader point with where the future for Ubisoft lies. What does any of this mean? Of course, they are in their active talks to potentially close this acquisition with Tencent to take the company private. There's also rumors that maybe Tencent is going to work to try and take more control, but push the Guillemot family out completely, which is what they really want. They don't want the Guillemot family still in positions of control, because Tencent can see what we all can see, which is that they're not the ones to lead this ship. So my official predictions are that Tencent, they're going to kind of let the line out a little bit. I think they're going to wait until after Shadows launches. I think Shadows will be a better game than most people expect. It's probably going to be pretty polished and it's going to be massive. A lot of people are going to love it, but I do not expect it to be like a financial powerhouse. I think it sells well because Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed generally can still move millions of units, but I don't think this is like the game that generates $10 billion. Okay. I don't think this saves their company single-handedly, especially because I think a lot of people are going to wait for a sale, even if it reviews pretty well, even if people are eating it up. A lot of people are just going to wait for a sale because it's a Ubisoft game. And when that happens, you're going to see the stock continue to struggle. And then Tencent is going to have even more leverage. They're going to walk in and say, Eve, buddy, we can help you out of this hole that you're digging yourself into. Let us give you the money. We'll take the company private. You can sail away on your mega yacht, but we're going to put our own leaders in charge, and you can retire a year afterwards. We'll throw you a big party. You can wear a special little hat. Maybe we even get you like a cool space wizard robe, and we'll call it good. But you need to go home now. And I think at that point, they won't have much of a say, because the company will start to go into free fall, and there will start to be debates over mass layoffs and things like that. As I alluded to earlier, a lot of financial analysts think that Ubisoft really should have maybe 10,000 employees. The average I've heard from analysts and stuff I've read is like 11 to 12,000. But based on the money they bring in from Rainbow, from The Division, from For Honor, from Assassin's Creed, they can justify about that many. 20,000 employees is ridiculous, is crazy. And so I think if Tencent takes over, They probably walk in the first day. You're going to see mass layoffs, unfortunately, and major restructurings, tons of project cancellations. You'll finally see Beyond Good and Evil 2 disappear and officially get shut down. And that's just how it's going to be. You're going to see doubling down on all the Assassin's Creed stuff, on Rainbow, all the big money makers, and they're going to stop experimenting with NFT stuff that just hemorrhages money. I think that's what it's going to take for Ubisoft to dig themselves out of the hole they are in. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe AC Shadows ends up exploding and being a massive financial boon, but I think that would be surprising. I think the Guillemot family would also feel that way too. But let me know what you think of all this Ubisoft stuff and my conspiracy theory of them kind of intentionally nosediving the stock. It's a conspiracy theory because it would be like super illegal. Again, I'm not accusing them of any crimes. I just think if they were given the option to make the best decision and then they have a couple of other bad decisions, they currently have an incentive to make the bad decision, which I think is pretty crazy. But either way, let me know what you think of all of this in the comment section below. I look forward to reading those. Have a fantastic new year. Again, go check out my second channel, Luke Stevens Live. We have a ton of other content there that you should definitely eat up and enjoy. So go do that. I'll chat with you guys soon. Thanks for watching. I love you all. And I'll see you in the next one. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.